How's Aria Juliet doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I want to welcome everyone who's just starting to tune in to Policy in Politics. And here we are, got some great guests coming up. We'll introduce them in a moment. Um, want to remind everybody that's watching that Ari and I are both volunteers. This is our disclosure time. That we're not representing any organization, and nobody's paying us to be here. We're doing this because we love the work and we want to help make our community a better place. The I was talking to Aria earlier, and it made me think, Aria, not everybody knows who we are. You kind of think the world we live in, everybody knows Gary Hooser, and Aria's been around for many years too, working in the movement, working around the islands. But not everybody knows who we are. So I'm going to take a second just to introduce myself and ask Aria to do the same thing. Again, my name is Gary Hooser. I'm sitting here in the living room of my home on Kauai, where I've lived for 45 years. Got 2 children, 4 grandchildren, and served 8 years as a Hawaii State Senator representing Kauai and Niihau, and 8 years on the Kauai County Council, and a lot of stuff in between. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to help make our world a better place. And a lot of times I talk about what keeps you awake at night. And recently, what keeps me awake at night is what's going on around the world, in Gaza, in Washington, D.C., what happened to those 11 people that got blown apart in the ocean on the Caribbean. And so we got some tough times here. Today we're talking about some related issues, important issues here in Hawaii. So Aria, why don't you tell everybody who you are?
Aloha, everybody. My name is Aria Juliet Castillo. I'm born and raised in Kauai. I live in Kailua on Oahu now. I'm the Reclaiming Democracy Program Director for Hawaii Alliance for Progressive Action. That means that I am privileged to work on programs like Kuleana Academy. It's a leadership development program with training people to hopefully run for public office and take their next step in their leadership and advocacy work. I also work for a small business, Kimo Composites, as an office manager. We're the largest canoe manufacturer in the United States, facing extreme issues with all of our other competitors being moved and their resources to China. So that's been a struggle. This past weekend, I had the privilege to join my Hanai family at the salt patch in Hanapepe on Kauai for salt harvesting. If anyone is not familiar with that, the salt beds is one of the only places on the earth where this traditional Hawaiian practice is still alive and well. It's been going on for generations. It's passed down through families. It's a sacred practice, handmade salt. It's called pakai. It's only gifted, it's traded, it's never sold. And I'm so privileged to have the Santos Ohana as my Hanai Ohana, and I've grown up my whole life with abundance of salt in my kitchen. And I never share that gratitude that I have for them and all they've done for me. But it just made me think. I've watched this family and all the other families that have salt beds constantly have been under attack my whole life, basically fighting mismanagement of state and county resources and neighboring properties. They have to deal with houseless communities and mismanagement of wastewater, mismanagement of there's an airport that was built right next to the salt beds. When they're trying to increase tourism in the area, they've dealt with illegal cesspools, trying to expand the airport operations to bring more tourism and more traffic into that special place. And it's just such an insult to us, everyone. And I just wanted to remind everybody that the Hawaiian culture is so precious and so beautiful. I'm not Hawaiian myself, but I feel very called to just make sure that we continue to protect these practices and protect what we love and protect what we have. We're so blessed to have this resource, and it's just really sad that it's always under constant threat.
Thank you, Aria. I don't think I've heard that story. I appreciate hearing you speak from the heart. Thank you. I think a common theme that we're seeing is the state of Hawaii. Our state government needs to step up and do its job. There's too much. They're supposed to be the steward in protecting the Wakaloa lands, the salt ponds, the precious around us. So that's a common theme. Before I forget, if people want more information or they want to get on my email list, I do an email newsletter. I hate the word newsletter, but it's what I do. It's more of a direct rant letter, but you can go to garyhooser.com and hit the subscribe button. And or you can go to, there we go, garyhooser.com. Tells you a little bit more about me there, garyhooser.com. Subscribe. I promise I won't bury you with meaningless pap. Or you can go to garyhooser.blog, and the stuff I write will be posted there as well. Please share it on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook right now, please share it with your friends. And we're going to get moving. The subject today, we're talking about the military land leases, primarily with Pohakuloa. Even though it's happening also in Oahu and on Kauai. The primary focus today is on the Big Island, Pohakuloa. And we have a map and some facts, and then we're going to bring on our special guest. So there's the map. You can see it right there between Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea along the Saddle Road. Right in the center, I want to say the Pico of Hawaii Island. This is a Pohakuloa training area, PTA. It's the largest military training facility outside the continental U.S. The largest one outside the continental U.S. It serves all branches of the U.S. military, not just the Army. We talk about the Army. This serves all branches. It is the largest Department of Defense installation in Hawaii. I should correct myself. This is the largest Department of War. Okay, how crazy and insane and despicable is that? Changing the name. We should have a Department of Peace, but they're now calling it the Department of War. As I said, it's in the Saddle region at an elevation of about 6,200 feet. It's roughly 132,000 to 133,000 acres. Some of this land is federally owned, while other sections are state-owned and leased by the Army. The training, it provides live fire, that means guns and bombs, artillery, mortar fire, small arms, and all kinds of other stuff they do there. And it's an area that's subalpine dry land ecosystem, home to several rare and endangered plant and animal species, managed as best they can by all of us. It also has significant historical, cultural, and archaeological significance. So this is an important place, and this is where it's at. And hats off to the people of Hawaii County for standing up, and we'll talk more about that later, their Hawaii County Council. So let's bring on our guests.
So we're going to talk about the legal, cultural, and community aspects of this, fight that we're having right now regarding the leases of Pohakuloa and the other leases that are expiring in 2029. So we have two incredible guests today: Hawaiian activist and culture leader Healani Sonoda-Pale, and attorney and advocate David Kimo Frankel.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. And you guys are legends, I'll tell you, and I'm not just making that up. I really appreciate all you do and have done for our community for a long time. And I don't have time to read it all or to say it all, but I'd like to welcome you, Healani. We don't know each other that well, you know. I met you online, met you at a few functions here and there around town, and you've invited me a couple of times to attend webinars, and I appreciate that, you reaching out to me. And so turnabout is fair play, so that's why I'm reaching out today to ask you to share your mana'o about the history, the culture, about your vision, what you hope to see, and how we can help. So that's my short introduction of you. It's more of a mahalo.
Can we have Healani just do a brief introduction of herself?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. My name is Healani Sonoda-Pale. I'm from Oahu. I was born and raised here. I am Kanaka Maoli. I have lineal ties to Oahu, Hawaii, and Hawaii Island. I can trace my genealogy back for 2,000 years. And I am very happy to be here. I am the spokesperson for Kalahui Hawaii, which is a Native initiative for self-governance and self-determination. I'm also an Oahu water protector, and I am one of the co-founders of Pu'uhonua Owailupe, which is an EV protector organization. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And David Kimo Frankel, thank you. And we go way back. I don't know where the roots are, but I know I've worked with you and around you for a long time when I was in the Senate and in the community. And you've been a champion uh, in the courts and in the community. I believe you were also with the Native Hawaiian Legal Corp at one time and may still be. I'm not sure if you're retired or you're still working, but thank you. And then there's everyone talks about the Ching versus case, and I'm hopeful you'll say a little bit about that at some point today. But go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself so people know who we're talking to.
I'm an environmental attorney. I worked at the Native Hawaiian Legal Corporation for about a decade, a little bit more than a decade, and I was one of the attorneys on the Ching versus case that deals or dealt with Pohakuloa, which I guess we can talk about that more later. So yeah, that's it. Nothing more exciting than that.
Yeah, why do you do this work? You could be working for some big shot downtown Bishop Street firm making tons of money, and you're a public interest attorney.
Yeah, that's it. I'm a public interest attorney interested in furthering the cause of justice.
Thank you so much for both of you. We're gonna jump into some questions. Aria, you want to start or you want me to start?
Yeah, I think we should start with Heilani. Could you talk a little bit about the history of the area of Pohakuloa?
Sure. Pohakuloa, the lands that we are talking about, the lands that were leased by the U.S. Army and are up for expiration in 2029 are Hawaiian Kingdom Crown and Government lands. That means that they do not belong to the United States. They're actually Hawaiian national lands that were seized after the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom. It was illegally transferred from the so-called Republic of Hawaii to the U.S. And via a joint resolution of annexation that was illegal as well. So even the legal history of the transferring and ownership of these so-called ownership of these lands are in question. And Pohakuloa so the lands, the 22,000 acres plus of lands that are up for are up in these leases or in this particular lease for Pohakuloa is stolen Hawaiian lands. And these lands are traditionally sacred. They're at high altitudes between two very sacred mountains, Mauna Kea being the most sacred. And it was known as an area that was Valakua. That wasn't where people necessarily lived, but it was a place that had very much a lot of spiritual value. And we know this, and this is all documented with the discovery of multiple burials in Pohakuloa, sacred historical sites that were found there, and then most recently the discovery of ki'i or carved wooden images found in a cave, and are people at Shifty are saying that could have been one of the most historical findings in most recent times. So there's so much there culturally, and of course, as Kanaka, as Indigenous peoples, we believe that the land is our grandmother, is a being, and that it's not something we can really own, let alone destroy and discreate and bomb. So the lands of Pohakuloa, the lands that we're talking about tonight, are sacred lands. They're sacred to Hawaiians, and they belong to Hawaiians. They were taken from us, and the title to these lands are in question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heilani. Thank you for that. I want to switch to the legal stuff now for a second. And, I firmly understand and believe and support the fact that the overthrow was illegal. There's no question in my mind about that. But we have a state government, we have a federal government that we got to deal with, whether it's a fake state or real state. They're the ones in charge at the moment. And so dealing with state law, the state constitution, in my mind, has some pretty good stuff in there. It says that they're supposed to, hold this land in trust for us. And David, you've worked and proven that the state hasn't done their job. The Supreme Court has said that. So if you could talk for a second about that constitutional provision, if you would, and then what do we do now under normal times? Let's assume for a second that the EIS was rejected and they would go to the next step, whatever that would be. So go ahead and just share your monotony with us, please.
I'm going to do the first part of your question first, and I probably will forget what the second part of your question was. So let's just clarify that, the map that you showed in the beginning, that depicts all of Pakaloa training area, and only a fraction of it, about 22,000 acres, which is a lot of land, is leased to the military. The rest, the military owns through a different, or retains jurisdiction over through a separate set of laws. So the lease issue is going to deal with about 22,000 acres approximately. However, without that acreage, they are unlikely to be able to do any training. So it is a vital part of what lets them do their training. So there are various provisions of the Constitution that apply to public land. But there's one section of the Constitution talks about these lands, which some people call ceded lands, and other people call seized lands. That these are trust lands. And what the Supreme Court said in the Pakaloa case, Ching versus case, is that the state has a trust duty to protect them. It can't, and this is sort of a basic principle of trust law that's a principle that's found throughout the U.S. going back to England. This is just a basic principle of law that a trustee has to protect trust assets, and you cannot let it go to waste. You cannot let it go to ruin. And in that case, the state had not done any job to investigate or monitor to ensure the Army was complying with the terms of the lease. The terms of the lease basically required them to clean up after each training exercise. And you can see in the visual behind me, these are the kind of military debris that were left behind, littering the landscape. And we had documents from the Army talking about how much unexploded ordnance was on state land. And the state had never done anything to ensure that the U.S. government implemented the terms of the lease and ensured that things were cleaned up and that the land was protected.
Can you, I just have a follow-up question real quick, either Healani or David could answer. What's up with the dollar leases? Regardless of what they're doing in this area, land in Hawaii, they're so valuable. How did anyone get away with signing off dollar leases?
So this goes back to statehood. With the Admissions Act had a special provision in it, basically saying the federal government could have retained any of the land it wanted. Okay, and so the U.S. government was threatening to retain this acreage. For whatever reason, which I don't know, and I haven't been able to figure out, the U.S. said, fine, we'll give this land back to you as long as you lease it back to us. So basically the territory, and then the state had a gun to its head. And the state said, okay, fine, we'll lease it back to you. And there's correspondence in the files, which was interesting, where the new state says, hey, we want these provisions in the lease. and the U.S. government says no. And there's back and forth. And basically, the lease is very one-sided. So as you pointed out, the lease was for $1, not $1 a year, $1 for 65 years. And number two, if there are any disputes between the federal government and the state as to whether the terms of the lease or whether the U.S. was complying with it, that dispute would be resolved by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So you can see it was a one-sided lease. It is one reason why there's no way the state could extend the terms of the lease, because that would be a breach of its trust obligation, given it no longer has a gun to its head. If it's going to lease the land, it would have to be an entirely different lease.
So that sounds a little like extortion. Is that what they call it?
Sure. I don't know if that's the exact term, but basically the state had no leverage in negotiating the terms. I guess the other thing I didn't mention that I should mention is, given the trust duty to protect its assets, it's hard to imagine how the state could allow this land to be leased again for bombing and live fire training, because that activity is so damaging. And we know that. We can look at Koholave, we can look at Makua, we can look at, I think it's Waikane, where there was so much damage. I mean, the military's washed its hands of cleaning things up. And so we have abundant evidence of how damaging this activity is, and that's why it would be a breach of the trust of the state's trust duty if they lease the land for more live fire training.
And I think the dollar the dollar for the 65 years is, I mean, it's such a small amount, and we're not even sure if they paid the dollar. I mean, there's no proof of that. That's another whole issue. But it's like it when you talk about like the state and the federal government, one holding the other, hostage, they're actually the same colonizing government. We are living under occupation here in Hawaii. The state is always going to be in cahoots with the federal government and vice versa. And I think that we can rely on some of that trust doctrine to protect our lands. But the bottom line is, historically, is that we are a colony of the U.S. and that this is how they treat indigenous lands. And they do this all over the place. They take lands from indigenous peoples and they destroy them, and they alleviate any chance that we have of ever using those lands in a meaningful and useful way and protecting those lands.
Speaking of the federal government working hand in hand with the state, I know that the governor has made very public comments about working with the Army, and some Hawaiian organizations are talking about negotiating, because there's this looming threat of eminent domain, or possibly the Army just taking the land without giving anything to anyone, and just wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts about the negotiation tactics, and what would you like to see to happen with these lands moving forward now that the ball is in our court, actually, because the EIS has been rejected. Mm-hmm. So what should we do now?
Yes, the people spoke. We won twice at the BLNR hearings, and we actually have the upper hand. We were able to, as a community, demand the shutdown of Red Hill, of the Navy Red Hill facility. People always said when we started, that won't happen. It will never happen. When we occupied Mauna Kea, they said, well, they're going to build TMT, whether you do that or not. Well, if we start from a point of capitulation where we are saying, okay, we want to sit at the table, then we've already lost. I think we need to hold them to the rule of law, to the trust doctrine. The state needs to follow the processes that it's set up. And the U.S. Army has to follow its own timeline that it actually had on, I think it's still on its website. right? They have a timeline that they're supposed to be following and a process. So they should be following that. So I think, even though, I'm not saying any one way is the right way. I think we can come at it at different angles, but it's not something that Kalawi Hawaii would do. I think at this, we still need to demand the end of the leases, and there's so many other things we could have demanded. Like, they're demanding that some kind of resolution is found by the end of the year now, and so I know everyone's feeling the pressure, but let's not fold under that pressure. I think we should stand strong, and we can win. We were on a winning streak, and I don't want to. I think we should just continue the path, and we should be standing up and protesting, and I hope our community does stand up to this. This is unfair.
So, thank you. I know I've talked to a lot of people about this, and there's different viewpoints. My own is, I want them gone. I want them not, stop bombing, stop the lease. No, I'm not saying kick all the military out myself. I'm saying these leases that are there now should be terminated, and then this clean up this stuff, and we can start the conversation back. But I know other people, and good people, influential people that work hard for our community, are thinking, well, how can we get money out of this? How can we get money for housing? How can we get money for school?
Yeah.
How can we get money for XYZ? Why don't we just lease them the land back and get all this money that we need?
And we should put it into context. It would be as if the Mauna Kea movement started at a place where let's have a seat at the negotiating table for TNT. Let's put it in that perspective. We're talking about the next 65 years for our people. And I won't even be alive in 65 years. So the struggle is not even ours. It's really for this next generation and for the generations to come after. So, and there's only so many people that can be on that negotiating table. And what are we negotiating away and what is our leverage? If we start from that point, it's only going to go downhill from there. So, to put it in perspective, this is a larger, bigger struggle. This is not just the Hawaiian issue. It's about anybody who wants to live in Hawaii and have a future that is livable and a future that is going to be worthwhile for our children.
Thank you. I would say also it's a global issue.
Yeah.
Hawaii, you can set an example from many other places. So we have the on-the-ground battle, if you would, the on-the-ground movement, and then we have the courts. And even though the state has not fulfilled by any stretch of the imagination its fiduciary duties, recently, I want to thank the BLNR for doing the right thing on those two issues. And that's a hard vote. I've had some hard votes in my life, and that's a hard vote. There's a lot of pressure on them, and they did the right thing. So thank you. Also want to thank the Hawaii Supreme Court. We just had a issue that I was related to a plaintiff in against Syngenta and the BLNR, and the Hawaii Supreme Court said we were right. It took 7 or 8 years to get there, but we were right. The same, I think there was a Maui water issue. The Supreme Court just recently ruled in their favor. So my question to our attorney, what do we do? What can we do now? And what should we do now? And this whole eminent domain threat, if we don't do something, they're not going to give us anything. They're going to take it. Is that a valid threat? Can the Army really not give us anything at all and just take it?
I don't think the possibility of condemnation should affect people's positions, attitudes, judgment, strategy, etc. Um, it is a possibility that it could occur, and it wouldn't. They would have to give money. It would work. Um, but I think if that happens, there is going to be a huge rupture in the social fabric. It will make it readily apparent to everybody that the kind of language that Healani and folks used about colonialism and imperialism a century ago, or more than a century ago, still very happening. It will sort of lift the curtain, be literally the army occupying Hawaiian land in a hostile manner. And it will make it impossible for the military in Hawaii. They are going, members of the military are going to be greeted with aloha everywhere they go if they are occupying through force. A condemnation action is through force. Um, that will not be treated in a friendly manner. It's going to make life here miserable for the Army and all the branches of the military. It will create an unsustainable rip in the social fabric.
So what's the next step? What's the next reasonable, if there is such a thing, step?
For whom? For whom? Because really, I think to the Army to figure out its next moves, and that, I don't know whether it is going to attempt to produce an acceptable EIS and to the borderland natural resources. I would assume that they are working on that. I don't know if they are. If they don't do that, it really limits what the state can do, which limits what the Army can do. So they may be boxing themselves in. I don't know what, but so then I don't organize, educate. I don't know that there's any concrete steps that can be taken. Bills in the legislature that may accomplish some of the things we want to accomplish. There's no. It's not really. It may be right for somebody to sue, given the statements that the Army Secretary has made and Josh Green has made, to get a declaratory order to say that a land exchange is not allowed under the Constitution and under the state law. But I don't know what else we can do in the short term until the Army and the state sort of reveal their plan of action.
So it seems the end of the year deadline is an impossible deadline.
Oh, there's no way. Yeah, that's a ridiculous, and everybody knows that on the inside and the outside. It's just posturing.
I think another point too is that the U.S. military has never used and returned a parcel of land in any usable way. Like, you can't live on land that's been bombed or that's been poisoned. Try growing a tree in soil that is full of PFAS and other chemicals. So it's going to, even that. I mean, there's so many different angles at this. They're trying to appease the public by saying, okay, the governor's saying, well, I want to get 5,000 homes and do a land exchange. But what land? Pearl Harbor is not even, you can't even fish in there.
So it seems that if we're waiting on the Army and the law has to grind itself out, the political implications, I think myself that we should be talking to the governor and to our congressional delegation and letting them know clearly what the people on the ground, the people that live here, the people that live in that area want. And yeah, that's
I
what I'm
think
getting at.
I think that's a good idea. I don't know the degree to which the congressional delegation is going to listen to individual folks. However, I think and I guess you'll talk about this a bit later. What the Hawaii County Council did is a step in the right direction. I think the legislature doing something similar, although passing a law rather than a resolution, could be very effective. Precluding a land exchange or trust land from being bombed. Those are things that the legislature can do, and I think that after we do that, then we have a more unified voice of all these people talking to the congressional delegation. I'm not I'm not entirely convinced. Well, I'm not convinced at all. Actually, the congressional delegation is going to be on our side on this one. It's going to require a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, one more quick question then, Healani. This is a legal question. You mentioned the state legislature could pass a law forbidding bombing on trust lands. Does the military have to follow that law?
So I have two answers to that question. The first is what that would do is preclude the state from leasing it. Even though I believe the Constitution already would prohibit that, but having that law would prohibit the state from letting the military do that. The second answer is, let's say the military were to condemn the land. There is a provision in federal law, the Coastal Zone Management Act, that requires that the federal government act consistently with the objectives and policies of state coastal zone management programs. So the amendments could be made to what's called HRS Chapter 205A, the Coastal Zone Management Act, that could similarly prohibit it. They're even barring that in the Land Management Law, Chapter 171, that would be sufficient to part of the coastal zone objectives, and the Army's action is inconsistent with state law. There is, of course, when it comes to these things, a get out of jail free card for the Army, where the president can declare that there's a national security emergency kind of thing, and then that could be further litigated. An issue of national security that it has, Paliko and Waikiki, that it excludes the public from public recreation areas and bellows. If you go that gate there that you can't go beyond, that only the military can go to, the Kilauea military recreation area up in the volcano. What the military practices now is recreation, segregation for recreation, all on the basis of national security, which is ridiculous. And I think those examples, when all these examples are brought to the court, everybody knows that Trump uses rhetoric that isn't supported by anything, and all that could go to court to show that this national security exemption is pretextual, that there's no basis, and in fact they don't actually need this land for training. It's important to certain segments of the economy, but there's no reason the military can't train on the mainland. They can go to the continent and do their exercises. They don't have to do it here. The troops that are deployed here, if they're here for national security, fine, but their training doesn't have to take place here. There's no nexus between the idea that, sure, there's a nexus between troops need to be trained, but there's no evidence that says the training has to happen here. The training can't happen in Nevada.
Thank you.
Healani, what would you say for people who are hearing about this issue and they feel like they want to take another action? What do you think that we can do?
There's a few things you could do. I mean, has been talked about a lawsuit, because this is absolutely illegal what the governor is trying to do behind closed doors. Also organize. I know that there are groups and organizations organizing in the community right now, and so that needs to happen, and to stand up in a peaceful but very strong way, to send a message, that this is going forward, in the manner that they are negotiating the future of our children and grandchildren behind closed doors and not even following their own rules and timelines is not acceptable at all. And also, the governor did put up a website, right? He wants to hear your input, and we could put our truth on there, and just share what it is that we want to see, which is we want to see we want to see the U.S. Army follow the process that they promised they would. At the hearing, at the last Oahu hearing, the Army commander, it's a woman, I forgot her name, but she said that she would, even if they rejected the final EIS, that they would continue and are committed to the process that is outlined, for the leases, and so so you can't. I think there's so many things people can do, and people need to feel like empowered right now. We're not, all is not lost. We do have time. The leases aren't up to 2029. Trump won't be in office for very long more. I mean, that should give everyone some hope, right? And so there's time. We have, we can organize. If we stand up and we stand together and strong, we can make a difference in this.
Thank you. I want to give a shout out to the Sierra Club. Wayne Tanaka put a question and a link in the comments, and so anyone watching should go to that link. And I agree, we need to flood the governor's box, because he's asking for community input, and if the only people that submit input are the people that want to support the governor's position or support the Army's position, then they're going to use that against us. So we need to make sure those of us that share the opinions expressed here today, that they're well represented on the governor's website. Thank you very much. And David Kimo, Frankel, another legal question. As a former director of the OEQC, it's my preface, Chapter 343, to me, is one of the most important laws on the books. And the Army, it's my understanding that in order to lease that land to the Army, they have to comply with Chapter 343. So anything short of compliance would be breaking the law. Is that an accurate statement? They have to resubmit, they have to get the BLNR to accept it, or else any other kind of acceptance is a backdoor breaking Chapter 343.
Well, exactly sure these are out there, but I'm going to take a little nuanced, a little broader statement than you just made. The state cannot lease the land, and it cannot exchange the land without an environmental impact statement being accepted by the Board of Land and Natural Resources. Neither of those is possible now, and will not be possible unless and until an environmental impact statement is completed and accepted by the Board of Land and Natural Resources.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have the URL, the bit.ly address for your talk tomorrow, Healani. There's a webinar tomorrow.
It's not really my talk. I'm just the moderator tomorrow. But I'm excited for tomorrow's talk as well.
There we go. It's on the screen now. If anybody watching, and it's case sensitive, so you have to put it exactly as it is, and you can see it on. I'll be posting this on my Facebook page tomorrow also. But yeah, so I encourage everyone. We need to get educated on this, and go to bat for the INA, for the land. So, thank you.
Um,
How much time do we have, Aria?
We can take a second to talk about the global impacts of the military and how it's, the globally.
Okay. Let me put some other facts on. Mishka has two things that I put together on the global. It's shocking. It is totally shocking what's going on in the world. So there we go. United States is the largest exporter of weapons worldwide. The largest exporter of weapons worldwide, more than anybody, with more military bases in more countries than any other country. Now this next one, how much money do we spend? The U.S. spends more money on war, it used to be defense, but today it's war, than any other country on the planet. More 916 billion, more than the combined defense budgets of 9 countries. Combined, more than China, Russia, India, Saudi Arabia, United Kingdom, Germany, Ukraine, France, and Japan. Combined, we spend more than that. And those troops from different countries who are engaged in battle right now are training on our shores as well. I know they train at PMRF and they train at Porokoloa as well. And that to me is shocking. One more quick thing on the screen. I pointed out my dream of making Hawaii, the Geneva of the Pacific, a place of peace. And a Kanaka friend of mine said, Gary, he said, that reminds me of what Auntie Hilahi Pak said. And I had no idea. But this is a famous words that she said. The world will turn to Hawaii as they search for world peace because Hawaii has a key, and that key is aloha. So that's my hope, is that we're talking about lots of things here, but let's keep talking about world peace, global peace, and the role that Hawaii can play in that as well. I don't know if there's any comments anyone else wants to make on that topic, the world global situation, or Hawaii as a center for peace.
Well, I think, Pohakulua, has real significance in many ways globally. Hawaii, in general, right? We are the command center for the Pacific, for the U.S. forces here, for the U.S. Imperial forces here in the Pacific. Now, Pohakulua is hosts other countries as well as part of the RIMPAC and the Joint Pacific Multinational Readiness Center. So there's exercises being done there by other countries. So on a global scale, the U.S. military has done way more damage than most other militaries in the world, and so I think, and Hawaii is one of the most militarized places in the world. Oahu alone, we are 23% of our lands are occupied by the U.S. military. So Pohakulua is central, I think, to the U.S. practicing and implementing, its policies abroad. So it's here in Hawaii where the means of violence is really gathered up, and they do their military exercises so that they can commit atrocities and support genocide abroad. And I want to just make that connection to what's happening in Palestine. None of that is happening without all of that is happening with U.S. Support and technology and weapons. So I think by doing what we can here, we can also help others abroad that are also in similar situations, or other indigenous peoples who are in worse situations than we are in, under like a violent occupation and going through a genocide.
Thank
David, do you have any final words to share?
Any closing comments? I really want to thank both of you for being here tonight. It's been powerful, for me personally, powerful conversation. And, thank you for that.
Sure. I guess I just say there's a difference between what the law says, what's legal, and what is just. So, yeah. So th- there are those of us who are going to work in the legal realm, but that doesn't um, mean that what can be achieved in the legal realm is going to be just. There are others that are going to occupy a different realm, and we'll see. We'll see where that goes.
Thank you.
Um, I think it's important to understand these are Hawaiian lands, and you know, the army can't negotiate on something it doesn't really own.
Thank you both so much. We're going to bring on our next guest and keep the conversation rolling. And you're welcome to stick around and watch and post questions in the chat. We're going to be talking specifically about Hawaii County and the great work their council has done, passing 8-0 resolution saying stop the bombing, follow the law. And that's the short message, I think. Stop the bombing and follow the law. So again, mahalo plenty, both of you. And if we can ever help, you don't hesitate to call.
Mahalo, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Okay. Here we are again. You know, I want to thank you, Arya. That was this show wouldn't happen without you. And you're a real partner and a friend. And I tell people how great you are all the time. I trust you completely.
You know, I've been thinking, it really is so offensive to me that the governor is kind of trying to steamroll this way forward and negotiate these leases by the end of the year. And the military has not been a good neighbor, has not been a good occupier. There's so many different things we can point out to with Red Hill, and like most recently, they're putting the blame on citizens instead of taking the blame on themselves for the contamination of our water sources, which is just ridiculous. And they have a history of the military has a really big problem with there's a lot of sexual assault that happens, especially around the RIMPAC activity. And just the way that they've treated people, they're not good neighbors. I agree with you when you say that we're not trying to kick out the military completely, but we need to see a reduced impact, a reduced footprint. Absolutely.
Yeah. The numbers say it all, but we don't need 9 times the rest of the world in terms of we're over the top. And I want to be clear, as you mentioned, I support a strong defense, not a war, but a strong defense. But enough already. I was raised in the military. I came to Hawaii. My father was a career Navy man. I have close friends and relatives who are veterans and who serve, and I back them up, and I'm proud of them. But this is just over the top. And with the new generals coming in that are handpicked by Trump, the president, and murdering 11 people in a boat from Venezuela in the middle of the night who've never been tried or convicted or charged. It's just, and we're part of that. So we have to step up and speak out. Is Tanya coming on? She must be somewhere close by.
Yes, let's bring on our next guest, Tanya Yamanaka Anasazian.
Hi. That was
Hi.
such a great discussion so far.
Yeah, thank you, Tanya. I want to thank you for all you do and all your work. We've Tanya and I have known each other for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Only this last year have we started working closely and talking to each other regularly. And you're a keeper, as they say. My daughter would say you're a go-to guy. You're not a guy, but a go-to person, somebody that You can trust what they say. They do their research. If they say they're going to do something, they do it. So thank you, Tanya, for all you're doing statewide.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
Please,
Thank
Also
you.
please
running,
take a moment to share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, as you guys were wrapping up talking with Healani and David Kimo Franco, I realized that I've always been a pro peace person, and so just to be here now just seems so relevant. I've been working here in Hawaii for over 20 years with nonprofits. I'm currently the principal contractor for the Chamber of Sustainable Commerce. And I worked closely with Councilwoman Rebecca Villegas on this recent resolution regarding PTA, which was really important to a whole bunch of us on Hawaii Island. Despite it being a resolution that's non-binding, it proved to be extremely meaningful and a really great tool, actually, to bring everyone together and get everyone back on in alignment on the same page. So it's always good to get involved in activism and then actually succeed with something.
absolutely, absolutely. Give our regards to Councilmember Villegas. Give her a big hug for us. She did fabulous work leading this, and all eight council members voted in support. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, when we were first hoping that someone would put it out there, it was hard to find someone who wanted to actually sponsor it. It's not necessarily something you want to do that's popular with people who maybe can help get you reelected. But it clearly, the council actually, White County Council actually passed this a very similar resolution in 2008. So we already knew the people wanted it. Just nothing happened. It was very similar to Ching versus Case, where yay, win. But then what? The state's not really enforcing anything to actually happen from that. So the same kind of thing happened in Hawaii County with resolution, I think it was 6408. It happened in 2008. But we learned a lot during this. Like we learned so much about national security and the big illusion of it. I was really happy to hear David Kimo Frankel talk so openly about that because it really is an illusion. People, I'm sure across the state worry about local security, family security. Do we have food? Are we going to have food tomorrow? Are we going to have food in 3 weeks? That kind of thing. So can we pay our bills? Can we afford electricity? That's local security. National security means very little when you can't afford your bills. And so there is an essence of that certainly is important. But when it comes to the day-to-day, people want to know that they have an actual ability not only to survive, but maybe there's some hope to thrive at some point. And an economy, what I learned also through this whole experience, I read every single testimony that was submitted. There were only a handful of testimonies submitted against it, primarily from people representing traditional chambers of commerce. And so, I did some deep dives on how tied our economy is to militarism and the military occupation. And so the economic benefits that we receive, particularly in Hawaii County, aren't really benefits at all. They're actually side effects of imposed control and occupation. And they're continuing use of the land, no matter what on paper or whatever we want to talk about says they have to adhere to. That doesn't matter. You know what I mean? So I think that was kind of the biggest eye opener for me, is that people would come and testify on behalf of the economy, which is not alive. It's actually constructed. It can be redesigned just as easily as it's designed to be about, food security and, life affirming systems. So,
I gave a shout out to you and to council members, but I really want to give a shout out to the people that showed up. Because you and I both know that if the room hadn't have been full of people, metaphorically or really, if there hadn't been so many passionate, young and old people that showed up, either by email or Zoom or in person, it wouldn't have passed.
Absolutely.
And hats off to HuliPack.
HuliPack, Mauna Kea Education Awareness, Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, HAPA. I mean, there were so many organizations, and people just brought out the students, teachers. I think that's what really made the difference. When you hear about when students are talking about how this affects them, whether, one girl just spoke about how she could feel the bombing while she was in school. And most of us don't actually have that as our reality. So when you're listening to someone who's in high school talk about that, I mean, that's crazy. If this lease were to go through again for 65 years, my grandson will be 70. He'll be older than I am today. You know what I mean? And so that's just really crazy when you start thinking about that. It's just our economic reliance on militarism is false. That's a false presumption, because that money literally just comes through to us because we're in a strategic location, and that money comes to us to maintain the occupation under a guise of economic development. So it looks like economic growth and development, but it's not really growth. Not many of us are thriving because they're bombing and training people to, go, upset democratically elected leaders in other places, or, train people to go to Gaza. I mean, it's literally tying us to values that are not our own. Those are values that probably aren't even held by a lot of people in the military, quite frankly.
I can't get out of my mind what you said. That young girl said she heard the bombs.
They can feel it.
Feel it while she's in school.
And Kupuna, Auntie Momi Green mentioned it too when she was at the Mauna. You know what I mean? And they could feel it as well. And that's when I first heard about it, how bad it was. Because if you're just driving through Saddle, you might be able to see the dust clouds and that, but you don't necessarily feel it. You know what I mean? But if you're spending time up there, you will feel it. If you're there on
a lot of people, like both of us, we don't live in Hawaii County, but we want to help. And I know I talk to people through my networks living all over the place, and they don't know whether it helps for them to send in the emails to the council, or they don't know what they're. So what would you suggest to people, both people that live in Hawaii County? What can they do now?
Well, I think still,
people that don't live there.
I think still we want to, contact your county and state legislators. Contact the governor, contact the mayor, to tell them what you think, what you feel about this. What I noticed when the students were talking is you could not discount what people made you feel based on what they felt. You can't get that out of your head, just like you mentioned, Gary, like just the retelling of that story of someone who's, a third of my age, who should be thinking the world is her oyster, as we did when we were young. To be experiencing that in school is insanity. What kind of world are we creating here for our children?
It'd be great if other council.
Some people to say that we need the economy that's based on that. I mean, it was just really hard to hear on one hand, especially our first hearing was the week before the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Japan. And as a Japanese woman, I just kind of found it offensive in some ways that the Japanese Chamber of Commerce in particular would be there in support of an economy and the economic benefits that were coming from, economy based on militarism that none of us chose. None of us chose to have this economic benefit from militarism, but it is by design.
So Tanya, if there's other counties that want to pass a resolution similarly in support of Hawaii County, how did you start to gather testimony and talk a little bit about the organizing effort that you went through to get supported?
What happened first was, I was just at a meeting at a friend's house with a bunch of people, and it just became clear that we wanted to do something about this and get it back out there. And so, we poured through past testimonies from BLNR, the two BLNR, the first BLNR hearing, because the second one hadn't happened in May yet. That's another thing. You have to trust the timing of everything. That's a big message that I got from this organizing, was that if I would have pushed for this would have happened in January or February, but it happened at such the perfect timing around the 80th anniversary of the bombing of Japan, after the BNR gave their second decision rejecting the final EIS, and then just with the governor meeting with Sergeant Driscoll and all of that. It just worked out in a way that actually probably poked a lot of people into coming forth in a way that community organizing may or may not really have been able to do that. But when the media and the governor was so bold, and they were so 60 days, I mean, nothing happens in 60 days, especially in Hawaii County. So you know that was crazy. I think it really upset a lot of people into action. So that's a great way to deal with your rage and anger, right? Is to fuel it into some kind of creative or political action that creates a little more justice. I mean, I find it to be helpful for me, so. But there's lots of things people could do. I think really understanding how our economy is designed is another big one, because I think there's a lot of things that happen in regard to our economy that we just think, oh, it's the economy and it's happening. But actually, all these big buckets of money, like when I found out that the Department of Defense, the Department of War now, thank you, Mr. Trump, awarded $3.2 million to DBED to support Hawaii Defense Alliance in 2023. And there was, I think, let me just get the number right, like 645,000 that funded Hawaii's defense economy. So, I mean, there's actually a concerted effort to manufacturing consent for economic growth tied to militarism in our state.
And are both of those affiliated with the state?
No, one of them is affiliated with the Chamber of Commerce Hawaii.
Okay.
The Military Affairs Council.
I think there is a military affiliated with the Department of Business Economic Development.
Yes, that's $3.2 million. Yeah.
So the state is it's embedded in the state government, like tourism is, to promote for the military, to promote for the state.
So
they hired public relations people, putting the word out to convince all of us that it's a good thing.
Right. So when Healani mentioned, that the state's in cahoots with the military, it's not just in terms of military leases and these things. It's literally in securing funding to make sure that they have enough funds to really create the narrative around that, and that we are relying on the economic benefits that the military brings. But there's so many side effects. Like Aria, I don't know if it was you that mentioned it, or but yeah, first of all, 22 veterans commit suicide in America every day. Is this really an economy we want, where we're training tomorrow's parents to kill people in another country? When you talk about it in realistic terms, in reality, it sounds absolutely absurd. We don't sound like the radicals. They do.
Yeah.
And then just the domestic and sexual abuse that's tied or linked to, communities that have high military presence, and then all the social services and safety net. And really, a lot of people who are here for the military wouldn't have been here except for the military. So would they have been here in the first place? A lot of people wouldn't have been. So
I thought it was interesting to hear David Kimo Frankel, who I've got great respect for in terms of his legal mind and experience. The guy knows what he's talking about. But he's actually encouraging the state. We didn't talk about the county, but encouraging the state legislature to pass laws. And before I heard him talk, I was thinking, well, they don't have to follow the laws. But by not following the laws, it weakens their position because apparently they're supposed to. And so I don't know. I think it's the conversation the counties need to have as well.
For me, Another thing I really got from this experience, because this did start almost a year ago of us coming up with the idea to try to do something, which ultimately became a resolution. Um, you know, war is this is a worldview that doesn't have to be. It doesn't. It's really, is it as bad as everyone says? That we're told. I mean, all of this comes down to how it affects our communities. So that means foreign affairs for the United States government are our community affairs. So all diplomacy is local. And we have a right to speak up about how that makes us feel. And we don't deserve to be treated as, invisible, as Hawaiians have been treated, since 1893. It's I don't think the collective conscience is going to be okay with this anymore at all. I really don't.
I have to think that, even like the Office of Economic Development, they have the Hawaii Defense Economy, like you mentioned. Now that it's the Department of War, is the state really going to be promoting Hawaii's war economy? I just don't think that's not going to fly with people. They're not going to want to pass money to support that.
And then look at how much money from the Department of War goes into the Research Corporation of UH. How much is funded UH programs and things in academia. And so I think I think by Trump renaming this, Department of War is actually going to help us here in Hawaii to be like, whoa, wait a second. It's not really why do we want the Department of Defense taking a hold of the education of our future? They have our economy. They have our students' future. This is too much. No, that's not defense.
I think it's just like that resolution, just like we're doing now, just like the people testifying. It starts with speaking out. It starts with using your voice. A resolution is a huge voice. The county council representing the entire voice. So my hope is that more people will start exercising their voice. University people, professors, university students, expressing the thought that you just mentioned, and people close to the governor, saying, Governor Green, are you sure you want to do this? Because I don't like it. And I'm going to have a good, difficult, if not impossible time supporting it. Not blasting them, but just letting them know, hey, it's not cool. It's not good. And, let's get our money cleaning up the place. Let's have them spend on that instead of, So I encourage people to use their voices, to call the governor's office, to call their state legislators, and tell them, what we're talking about. And thank those council members, people on the Big Island. Thank those 8 council members. If you're not on the Big Island, you call your council members and tell them, be like those guys.
I mean, it's hard to be the first person to step out, and put your neck out for the people, because you don't know if they're going to show up. You know what I mean? You don't really know how many people are going to show up. How many of us have spoken up in a room for other people and yourself, and then you're the only one standing there? So sometimes it's, you're like, oh God, did I do the right thing? But you did do the right thing, right? Because you're listening to your own heart. You're listening to yourself. So I think people are, well, certainly these younger generations, I'm going to be an old fart soon. So certainly these younger people, they have a different idea of what is Pono, and a lot less patience than someone in my generation has. We've been patient. We've been trying to do it the right way. We've been trying to, hello, can I speak? Or thank you for allowing me to testify. No, actually, that's your job. You know what I mean? I don't have to thank you for allowing me to testify. You know what I mean? You could thank me for being really good and sweet about it. Because I'm angry at this point.
So Tanya, we have the 8. I believe there was 8 council members that passed it out of council, and then a set of 8 different ones passed it out the final full council, just because people weren't there that day or something. So assuming that basically this resolution has the support of the entire county council, what is the feeling on the ground of the administration, of the mayor, and then other state representatives?
So I haven't talked directly with the mayor or our state representatives yet. I am scheduling meetings now. I am part of a hui, an informal hui that did meet previously with the mayor, and he's coming from a different place. I understand when you visit the Pentagon also that you're going to learn a lot about security, national security, and how important Pohakaloa is. But if you have time to do the deep dive and the research that a lot of people did, if he read all the testimonies from everybody and took the time to watch it, he's a good guy, man. You know what I mean? He really is. It's just he's in a different kind of predicament when you're the executive of the county corporation, basically. You know, you have to play it in a different way, and so it's really important for the people to speak up. Call Mayor Kimo and explain to him how you feel. Send him an email. Send him a voicemail. It is really important. He wants to hear from people. He genuinely, I believe, does. He's a really good guy. So, but I'm a good person. I haven't made all good decisions in my life. So you know um, when there's pressure, we have to counter that pressure. We have to counter the narratives. We have to counter the $3.2 million that the state gets to spend to tell us how important the military is here, you know and how important Hawaii's defense economy is here. Why aren't we
Well,
pouring that kind of money into growing food? I don't know. I think we got to start working on our state legislators and start showing them this kind of data from real people perspectives, not legalese, real people perspectives. Most people aren't making $90,000, $75,000 a year and more, which doesn't sound like a lot for the work they do necessarily, in all honesty, but it's definitely way more than average people who are trying to pay all their bills. So I know I don't make that kind of money, and I worry about how I'm spending my money. So,
you know,
that's, I think, another important thing is when you feel that inspiration to do something, follow through. Because a lot of us don't have a lot of time. But if something, we have to address a whole bunch of elephants in the room. So if you're getting pissed off because an elephant's pooping in your corner of the room, do something about it. Even if it's just send an email or make a call, it all makes a difference because they're not used to people like us saying more than a peep. So the more we can do, the better.
so sending an email and making those calls makes a difference.
Yeah, and talk to people. What you listen to people and you hear their stories, and you understand that maybe you're just a little irritated about this. But when you add up all of our little irritations, you realize that you're not just a little irritated. You're really, I'm enraged by some of this stuff. Like I empathize a lot with what Ari said in the beginning, like your whole life you're seeing this. Um, my mom just passed last year. Both my parents are in Punch Bowl. I just recorded a story for HPR, and my story is about ultimately what are our parents' sacrifices for, and how does that affect me and what I'm going to be doing with my time now in the future. It makes me want to cry because I don't want my grandkids to have less time on their hands, less health, less good food, less clean air, fight for clean water. I mean, these are all rights. These are all rights. We live in an incredibly abundant, beautiful place, the beautiful culture that influences us all. It pisses me off to see people wearing aloha shirts and talking about things that then they don't support through policy.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I think about that. You've made me, almost made me cry. Where were you, Grandpa? Where were you, Grandma? What were you doing when all this stuff was going on?
Well, I'll just tell you a really quick thing about that story. My dad, when he was sick and dying on the continent where he lived in his later years, he was having nightmares of the bombing of Pearl Harbor when he was 5. And he fought in Korea. But that didn't affect him as much as the bombing of his own home. And so war has effects for generations, because I'm still affected that my dad went through that when he was dying. And he was calling out for his mom, in Japanese, because he was so scared of what was happening on December 7, 1941. That was so long ago. And that's living in me and in my DNA.
So I come back. I like a lot of people, I go in circles sometimes, but I come back to thinking globally and acting locally, which is what we're doing right here. This is what we're doing. Hawaii can be an example for the entire world here.
Right.
We can take ownership of the U.S. military on our shores and inspire other people. We can be a center of peace. We could be a place that hosts gatherings of diplomacy.
Right.
It just takes leadership, and you're providing that leadership in your community, and beyond that, I want to thank you for that, Tanya, very much.
Oh, thank you guys for everything you guys do. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, and we're going to keep doing it. Yeah, this was good. It's because this is real stuff. It's really happening. It's not. Yeah.
This is not abstract foreign affairs anymore. This is happening here, and what we do here in a militarized economy in a occupied state here, it affects the rest of the world.
Yeah.
So speak up.
Thank you so much, Tanya, for joining us.
Thank
We
you,
so much appreciate all the work that you've done and everything that you do.
Thank you. Thank you, HAPA, Hulipag, Chamber of Sustainable Commerce, everybody that really came together. Kumu case, Anti-Magazine.
And if people want to get on a list, if they want to get on a mailing list to get a heads up, it's Chamber of Sustainable Commerce.
Yep.
You guys maintain a list like that and do mail outs.
Yep.
Hulipag, HAPA. Okay. Thank you so much, Tanya.
All right. Thank you.
Oh. That was great.
Yeah.
Good, Joe.
It's really, really good. It's heavy stuff, it's the military. But I think it's good. And I think that we are in the community that wants this is growing every single day. And, the wins with the EIS and the resolution, I think the momentum is there. So, yeah.
No, it's good. And I want to thank everybody that's out there who sent in testimony or made a call. And keep making those calls and keep testifying, keep showing up, because it's working. I'm going to tune in tomorrow to that other webinar, so I can learn more as well. It's in the chat box. There was a corrected bit.ly address that was on there. And I'm going to be posting about it. There's a correction at the bottom of the screen. I'll be posting that on my Facebook page tomorrow, putting it out. I encourage people to join. You have to register. A lot of good people working on it. The Sierra Club, the Red Hill people are also rolling their sleeves up. So thank you, Aria Juliet.
Thank you, Gary Hooser. You're going on vacation, right?
I am, and we're going to see what the time difference is, but I still want to try to make it happen. I'm going to go see my beautiful daughter and her family, and then we're going to go see my wife's 4 sisters, who are running around with 5 girls, and me. So I'll be bringing my computer and working from a distance. But yeah, we'll stay in touch. And I got a lot of work to do this week. Thank you, Mishka. Mishka, where are you at, my friend? Are you there? I couldn't do this without you, so I really appreciate you being there, Ronnie. So we're going to sign off. I ask people to watch it. If you're watching it late, still share it with your friends. So, aloha, hui ho.
Aloha.